Hello everyone, Dwayne Huff, founder of Band Leadership Seminars and creator of Band Leadership Online. And in this video, I'd like to share an interview that I recently did with a band director out of Imperial, Missouri at Seckman High School. His name is Mr. Ben Middleton. And the reason I wanted to interview him is because he reached out to me about using the Band Leadership Online course in his program. But then he said something in his email that really grabbed my attention. And so I asked him if we could talk on the phone. And so I jumped on a phone call with him. We talked for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And he shared some really intriguing things with me about how he's approaching leadership in his band program. And I've got to admit that it was not something that I'd ever thought of or heard about in a band program. Maybe you have, but he had some great wisdom, some insight, and some experience that he's sharing. And I wanted to share it with you. That's why we jumped on that interview. So in just a second here, I'm going to cut away to that and you're going to see the interview. But just let me give you a heads up. My fault. The technology and the sound and the video is not as good as what you're seeing right here because I forgot to bring my microphone with me. And we used a platform that probably wasn't the best. But at the end of the day, here's the idea. His audio and video is going to be better than mine. You're going to see mine first, so just kind of bear with it. But when he gets to talking, it's a lot more clean, clear, and visually appeasing. So just bear with us. The interview is probably close to an hour in length, if I'm not mistaken, but he's just got some tremendous insight and experience from his program. So I hope that you will enjoy this. Take a few moments, grab a cup of coffee, and sit back and enjoy. And whenever the video is finished or the interview is finished, I will come right back and share my closing thoughts. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll talk to you soon.
The reason that I wanted to pull up with Ben and talk with him is because not long ago he reached out to me about my Band Leadership Online program. He wants to use it in with his students, but he said something very interesting that I just had to dig in deeper because he was talking about how he was going to use the program, and it was like anything I'd never heard, unlike anything I'd heard before, because he told me that he had done away with the traditional structure of student section leaders from a student leadership perspective, and that fascinated me. And so I just wanted to dig in deeper to that and understand. So Ben and I spent some time on the phone discussing it, and I said, wow, we've got to come together and do an interview so that we can share this wisdom and the experiences that you've had with this with the rest of your peers and your colleagues here, so that they can understand, learn from it, and maybe even apply it into their own band programs. So I kind of want to throw it over to you, Ben, and just kind of let you take us from what you've done and how it all evolved, and then ultimately tell us how it's serving you in your band program and some of the success you're seeing from it. Can you do that for us?
Absolutely. Well, I've been at the school now for 10 years. I'm going into my 5th year as the head band director. When I started 10 years ago, we had the traditional model of having 1 or 2 section leaders for each section, pretty much just based on nothing but the merit of the students and the length of time they'd been in the band. And their playing ability. So, there was not really a whole lot of consideration sometimes with character or, what we had seen from them. There's a little bit of that, but mostly it was who are the top players. And I know a lot of band directors do that. It's quick, it's easy, and, it does, everybody tends to look up to those people anyways because they're really good players. Over the last 4 years, since I've been the head band director, we've had the same staff together, and so we've begun to change things up a little bit. And last marching season was the season where we decided to rip the Band-Aid off, so to speak, with the section leaders and just get rid of the titles. We had tried to go to the more DCI model where we have caption heads, give like a saxophone player, put him in charge of the flutes and clarinets, those type of things. Didn't really work for us because those people, they're not college kids. They don't know how to play flute or clarinet, and so they really couldn't do a whole lot there for music for their sections.
Okay.
So as the band's getting bigger now and evolving, we had a situation where last year we only had 18 seniors in the marching band. And it seemed like a really good time to make the change. And so we just, without warning, we didn't tell the kids. We just posted the list. Hey, we've got 3 drum majors. That's it. and I brought the juniors in one section at a time, and kind of shared with them my heart and my vision for what was going on. And like I do every year, if I have kids I think that may not get it, I give them a chance to step away. Hey, if you don't think this will work for you, let's find something else for you to do. But if you show up at camp, that means you're signing off on it.
Right.
And just shared with them the fact that, I was done with the drama. I was done with the lack of leadership from the people with the titles. I was done with the abuse of power and the perceived power that these students think they have once they're given a title. And we were just moving on. And what we saw last year was a new approach where we gave every student in the band leadership responsibility. And this is why I wanted to get into your leadership program, because now I want to educate the rest of the band on how every individual, from the freshman who's marching on the wrong side of the field to the kid who probably should be drum major, but he's not, can be an effective leader without having a title attached to their name. Because what we present to the students is that everybody has something to give for leadership. And that's what we want to foster, and that's what we want to develop, without having this idea of, well, I might be the most mature person in the section, but I'm a sophomore. I can't do anything. I want those people to do things. I want them to excel. I want them to grow. And honestly, in our band program, over the past 10 years, I've seen more leadership potential from the younger students than the older students. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But it's not a good thing if you have, a senior who's a section leader with a title, and they're not really the best person for that job. You'd be better served to have a sophomore. And I think any band director that's had a sophomore or junior drum major, for example, can attest to that. Sometimes you just got to go with the person that you think can do it. So the end result last year was the best marching season we've ever had. I don't know if it was because of that, but it was certainly part of that. Our students were able to operate in a system where they were free of these large responsibilities. One kid didn't have to be in charge of the section. We could put different students in charge of the section. And basically what we would do is we would say, all right, if you want to have a sectional, that's fine. You've got to do it off of our time, because all of our time that we have with the kids, they have an adult in front of them. So if you want to do a flute sectional, that's fine. You call it. Let me know you're going to have it, and I will tell the section you are running it. And that way it can be somebody different each time. That gives multiple people an opportunity, instead of locking you into a poor candidate for 4 months. You can rotate that. And so we had that this past year, and we were able to make that work. I was able to go to students at a water break and say, hey, Jimmy's really struggling with marching. Tomorrow after school, I need you to pull him aside and work with him. And just do it, and it didn't even matter what section they were from. It doesn't matter. The judges don't care what section you're in. They really don't. So why is it critical that a flute player works with a flute player on basic marching? So it's a much more free system to work. And people might say, well, the kids are losing out on the joy of being a section leader or that type of stuff. Well, 2 years from now, no one will ever know that we had section leaders. And we'll be completely free of that. And I think we'll be able to move on. And I'm not entirely, set on not going back to it. But if I ever go back to it, there's got to be a much better, a much stronger framework there than what we have. So right now, this next school year, we're operating with 2 drum majors, a junior and a senior, both returning, peak leadership. They are who we want them, to be. They are the face of the band. They're the kids that you would let babysit your kids. They're it, and they just do things the right way. And that's who I want the kids looking up to, not somebody that I might not see as much.
Right. And let me ask you. Let me back up here for a second, because you talked about if the particular student, for example, a flute player wants to call a section rehearsal, you tell them, go ahead and I'll announce it, and you go ahead and run it, and giving everybody an opportunity, whoever wants to have that opportunity to run it. And so when you do that, when they say, hey, I want to run a sectional, and you say, okay, I'll announce it and put that in play, how are you seeing it work out, being the kids responding to the person who wanted to have the sectional? Are you seeing anybody getting less respect, or are you seeing it all pretty much work out because this person's called it, you've put your blessing on it, and they go and run it? Are you having any hiccups there, or is it pretty consistent?
Well, I think last year was the first year that we had obviously started this, so there weren't a ton of kids chomping at the bit to do sectionals, because there's a little bit of that feeling out process. But I do know in my trombone section, a girl called a sectional, we announced it, and then they had a sectional. I think it went well, but the kids that didn't show up, they're the ones that I called into my office real quick and said, hey, you know what? This is the way we do it now.
Right.
What happened? You couldn't get a ride or what? But this is how we're doing it now. And since you brought it up, I think our last morning rehearsal of the year, we do morning rehearsals the day of our marching festivals, and we called the kids in a half hour early and said, all right, this is going to be your sectional time. And it ended up being a complete waste of time because, we hadn't really set who was going to run these sectionals. And so the kids kind of got outside and, okay, what do we do?
Right.
So we go outside and the trumpets are on the swing set, and, they're just, some sections handled it better than others. So we've still got some work to do. But from that end, what I assess is who the kid is coming to me and asking. If it's a sophomore who's in my third concert band, probably not going to want that student to run a sectional.
Right.
But, those are the kids that they're not going to ask. All right.
Sure.
It's going to be your top kids that do that.
Okay.
And there's still some training here. I did have a couple students come up to me in October of last year and say, hey, you know what? This kid just can't play their music. My response was, that's your fault. Not my fault.
Right.
So we're still trying to build that team atmosphere of, and once again, this goes back to, it's everybody's responsibility.
Yeah.
If there's a kid in your section that can't play, fix it.
Yeah.
Because they'll listen to you infinitely more than they'll listen to me because I'm not hip and cool.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, and another thing you pointed out, and it kind of goes to along the lines of students stepping up to leadership. You talked to me, I believe, about a young lady who was a junior saxophone player who was starting to fall into the rut of 11th grade itis, if you will, and it was on the fence as far as being positively influential or not so positively influential. Tell us about that, because I thought that was a very interesting story about the example you're setting there.
Well, we had these music rehearsals in the month of June. We just get the kids there. It's kind of a management type of deal, just getting the kids into the system and getting them used to playing the show music before they go home for 2 months.
Sure.
And I'd noticed in my alto saxophone sectional that one of my juniors, probably the top player in the section, I would say, had just not been exhibiting positive leadership, not doing anything overtly rude or intentionally disrespectful, but the body language wasn't there, the attention to detail wasn't there, the talking while the instructor was talking was present, and just like with the section leader ripping the Band-Aid, I just decided that's where we're going to make our stand. And I called her in the office, and I just, and she's one of my private students, so there's, it's not like coming in the office was a big deal. We're in the office working together quite a bit. And this is, like I said, top players, symphonic band, jazz one, that type of stuff. And I just said, hey, you know what? I want to know if everything's going okay with you. Is everything going all right at home? Because I'm worried because I'm not seeing what I need to see. And
Sure.
I just want to let you know that, and I talked to you about this in jazz band too, that I'm moving on from the past. I'm no longer interested in senioritis or junioritis or any of that. I want my top players to be my top examples in everything you do, 24/7. Anybody can see you, you're doing the right thing. And I'm not seeing it right now. And I know you're capable of doing that, and you're a strong player, and you're very influential because you're a very nice person. And I just want to make sure you know where I'm coming from and what my expectation is, because I'm not seeing it. And this is the way I'm going to handle this year, is if I see something with any of the kids that I don't like, I'm just going to talk to them one-on-one. It might be on the office. It might be on the field just during a water break. But, work with them and then offer help. How can I help you be better at this?
Sure.
And talking about talking during rehearsal, this is one of the nice things that we're hoping to see as a product of getting rid of the section leaders is killing the talking on the field. I can imagine every band director, even the BOA championship band directors, fight the talking on the field.
Right.
And now we've created a climate where there's no reason for a student to talk on the field. Nobody has a title. You're not allowed to go fix anybody else. Go to your spot. You're responsible for your spot. And if all 25 dots take care of their 125 dots,
sure,
we're good. And
nice.
with 5 band directors on the field, we'll get to you.
Sure.
So the alto student, I think she's going to be okay.
Okay.
She's still got 2 years with me, and I think that's going to be a positive thing for her. But I think for band directors out there that maybe are like me, a little bit old school, don't mind throwing their weight around, taking it from that caring standpoint in situations like this is always good. And I learned that from a master choir educator, is to just take it back to the student. Hey, is everything going all right? Is there anything I can help you with? The kids will read through it, but they'll know what you're doing.
Sure.
And they don't put their defenses up, and you can really get to them. And I have high hopes for this student. I think she'll be okay. But it's really important in a very young section to set that example from the word go.
Absolutely. And you say you learned that approach from a master teacher, choir teacher. I'd heard something very similar from one of my leadership mentors. And in the band leadership program, I actually send out a link to a video. His name's Simon Sinek. And he talks about that very thing, but he talks about it from a corporate perspective. He's like, in the corporate world, everybody wants to say, what's the matter with you? What are you doing? What's going on? But he said if you'll step back and you'll simply give them the benefit of the doubt and simply approach them in a very diplomatic way and say, hey, is everything okay? To give them that opportunity to open up, because we have a certain perspective of what people are going through, thinking, but we never know. And so I think that approach that you're taking there is brilliant and solid. But the other thing that I heard you say is that you set expectations with her clearly about where we're going. Here's what we're leaving in the past. Here's where we're going, so that in no uncertain terms, she knows exactly, what you're looking for, so that she can rise to that occasion. And I think so many times, and I'm not saying just in the band world, but I'm thinking so many times in life, whenever there are expectations that aren't shared and explicitly shared, things get lost in translation, and people are wandering around going, well, okay, I want to do my best, but I don't know what to do. And I think whenever you set those clear expectations like that, it helps her and everybody else in your band to come along, because they know, what target to shoot for. So kudos in that respect. Let me back up here and ask you, so you mentioned we pulled away the section leaders. There's no reason for the kids to talk on the field. We've got, what did you say, 5 band directors out there?
Yeah, approximately at any time between 2 to 5 staff members, during rehearsals.
Right. So they're the ultimate authority. So my question becomes, you reached out to me about my band leadership online program, and I'm like, okay, well, if you're not doing student leaders per se in the traditional sense, how are you approaching the development of this leadership mindset throughout the culture of the band in your band camp? How are you approaching that, knowing that you don't have section leaders that you bring in for a week and teach them specifically, but you're spreading it throughout the culture? Tell us about your approach to that.
Our approach is we're obviously going to use the leadership program that you've got, and we're going to do about an hour of this during our long camp where we've got the kids all day. During lunch, we'll call it lunch and leadership, and we'll use these videos as a kind of
Ben, I think I lost you, buddy. Hold on, I think I lost you. Did you put it on mute?
Nope.
Okay, there you are. Back up there.
Okay.
and go from the place. You guys are an hour every day of band camp, if I understand correctly, right?
Yeah. Well, we're going to spend an hour of our 13-hour days doing leadership during lunch.
Okay.
And what I want to do is use the videos to open up dialogue with the students on how we're going to make our system work, because they're going to hear from you about section leaders, drum majors, student leaders. I know some band directors might do band president or any of that stuff. I'm not that guy, but what I think is important, and one of the things that I'm really excited about during camp, is I want to get a freshman to stand up in the band room and tell me what they expect from a senior.
Okay.
Because I think that's critical. I think many times kids don't understand that people are watching them.
Okay.
And I remember a student that just graduated from me, very outstanding saxophone, all-state saxophone player. It wasn't until this year, her senior year, when she came to me and said, wow, I didn't know that people were really paying attention to me.
Wow.
To which I said, yeah, they've been paying attention for 3 years.
Yeah.
But if I can get kids to realize from the beginning that, you know what, somebody's always watching. And
Sure.
I think back to my first days in marching band, I latched on to the wrong people in the marching band when I was in high school. Now, eventually I became a drum major and became the person that it was the positive influence. But I remember latching on to some of the wrong people in band. And the good thing is I don't have those type of students in my band, so I'm not as worried about it. But I think with your leadership program, what I'm looking forward to is, for example, that I talked to you about the Alvin and the Chipmunks model. Yeah. I think that's critical. I think every band director should have every single kid sit down and try to figure out which chipmunk they are. Yeah. Because I'm telling you, some of the Alvin kids need to come to grips with that and understand that, okay, that's who I am. And then the Theodores of the world realize that, okay, I'm still an important part of the group, but that doesn't mean I have to run a sectional. That doesn't mean I have to play the very best. I can be a functional part of the section just by doing my job. And that's what those are the lessons that I think I'm excited about having all 140 students in the room with, instead of giving it to 9 kids and hoping that they get the message.
That's a good point.
And I know, and I don't know if I'm going off on a tangent here, but you could always kill this later. I remember being a kid and going to church camp. And some churches send all their kids. They send every kid who wants to go to church camp to church camp.
Right. Some
churches only take 10 or 11, 12 of their students and train them to train the others.
Right.
I don't see any difference here. Sorry about that. I'm kicking my stand. I don't see any difference here in those two approaches. They're very similar. I just decided that instead of having 7 or 8 of my kids try to train the masses, we'll just work together. And then if if 4 years down the road, we have this blossoming leadership and every kid wants to do things, then maybe we can change things. But for now, I think this is going to be a really good way to do this and let every student know, or not know, but develop their own idea of how they fit in with that. For freshmen, it's going to be mostly just be quiet and march your spot.
Sure.
But for the sophomores who are the better players, it might be, okay, now I can step up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, every band director out there knows that if you have a senior section leader and a hot shot sophomore, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Because seniors don't like to come to terms with the fact that there's kids better than them. It's tough.
Right. No. Absolutely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's where I was headed. Is now this system that I have gets rid of that. It's, we all have the same goal to make the band better.
Right.
We're just going to do it on a different level.
No, that's great. And in just a second here, we'll talk about if anybody has any questions for you or would like to reach out to you, how they can get in touch. But I just want to back up here and say that, you haven't seen it, and some of the band directors watching this haven't seen it, but there's going to be that opportunity you mentioned for them to figure out who everybody in their band is in terms of the behavioral styles, whether it's Alvin, Simon Theodore, Donald Trump, Gordon Ramsay, because in the course itself, there's a downloadable PDF that's it's a 3-minute activity that assesses who they are, and it's offensively accurate. It's crazy, right? So you'll get that opportunity. The other thing you were talking about is wanting to show and demonstrate that people are watching you. And whether it's you getting this freshman to stand up and tell the senior and the senior to get up and tell the freshman so they become hyper-aware that people are paying attention and watching. I also, in one of the lessons, talk about what goes into what people believe and trust and perceive as your attitude, right? And there's 3 components there that will really expose to students how severe what they're putting out is to their influence. And we call it the visual, the verbal, and the vocal. So look for that part to help supplement what you're doing by having that senior stand up and that freshman stand up, because it'll serve. You might not have to say anything. They might look at it and go, "Oh my goodness," and it might become very, very obvious. Let me do this and ask you, if somebody is digging the idea of wow, you know what, that is a good concept of ultimately phasing out student leader roles and taking more of this approach. You've done this in phases, or you're doing this in phases. What other advice or insight would you give band directors who are considering this approach?
I think it's really important to make sure your staff is on board. Mm-hmm. Make sure everybody is really on board with it. I tend to be somebody who really wants the input of all of their staff members, especially since my staff members are my middle school band directors. Okay. I think it's really important that we're all on the same page so that the ninth graders aren't surprised at my attitude or my way of doing things or my expectations. Right. It's got to be a full staff concept to make sure that everybody's opinions are heard and then go from there. But I would assess where you are, and if you're not sure this works for you, I would say to take a look at what have your section leaders done for you lately, and find out if it's been effective. Are you seeing what you want to see? What are their behaviors? Are they modeling correct behaviors, like you said, the visual and the verbal? Are they doing what is expected of them? And go from there. And then certainly this isn't the be-all, end-all. I'm not, we don't have the greatest band program in the world. I do have the greatest kids. So, I mean, there's that. But it's something that I think would work for us. And it wasn't something we did overnight. We started talking about this probably 3 years ago. Okay. And just kind of whittled it down I hope that someday maybe we can get back to it with the traditional model, but there's going to have to be a change in the maturity of the group and a change in the way our kids see themselves before we do that. Because, now training the whole group, this allows me to train kids to deal with not being the head honcho. And I think that's a critical component that's missing a lot of times when you say, okay, Billy's the section leader and the rest of you are going to do what he says.
Yeah.
Well, some kids don't know how to deal with that. They've never had that before.
Right.
Unless they're an athlete on a team that has a captain. And then that's only if the coach knows how to do that and run that effectively. They haven't dealt with that before. So there's a lot of important things here to do that they can benefit from. So I would just say to assess your system and find out, is it working for you? I love the idea of the on-field not having anybody that can go tell anybody else what to do. I love that. It's fantastic. Makes me happy. Because I mean, how many band directors out there have called dress set or we use check and adjust, and all of a sudden the trumpet section leader, right, is over there, screaming at a flute player or, talking to a color guard member who ran them over and hit them with the flag.
Yeah.
We just don't deal with that anymore.
That's cool.
Wait for the water break. Tell me what happened. I'll fix it. I mean, that's pretty good. The chances of it happening again are slim. So let's not get caught up in the one-time event type deal. But I think this is going to work. And for our kids that want to talk on the field, this is going to allow us to work with them a little better to find out what's going on in their brain, because they really don't have any reason to talk. I mean, it's your spot. What's wrong with your spot? Did it move? No. All right, let's go. Let's move on. So at the end of the day, assess where you are, assess if the system that what you're doing is working, and make the adjustments. But train your leaders. I mean, train them.
Okay. Yeah. So, and you alluded to this just now, and I know we've had this in a past conversation, but a feedback system. If something's not going right on the field, wait till the water break. Tell me. Do you have a formal feedback system that they can report up to you, and you can be aware of everything between rehearsals, or how do you handle that?
We're going to try something this year that I'm bringing back from the Stone Ages, back when I was in college. Our choral director at the university would never allow us to critique anything during rehearsal. Because if you think about a college choir of 48 people with 40 music majors in it, everybody's got their opinion.
Right.
and so the way he dealt with that was he handed all of us these small, tiny little stick-it notes. The smallest ones you can buy at the store. They're about half an inch by an inch. And we had those in our folder. Yeah. And so when we had something that went wrong, we would just pull out that sticky note, write on it, and then at the end of rehearsal, we would litter his folder with these sticky notes.
Okay.
And he would go back and he would put them in the music. So the next time we rehearsed, he could say, oh, yeah, so the basses say at the top of page 3, they're not getting that D flat. Let's look at that. And we didn't have to do it in the moment, because what would happen is, especially with that many music majors, they run the class and instead of the director doing this. So this is going to allow us to run our rehearsals at the pace we want to run it. Okay. And so we're going to put a couple packs of sticky notes up on the drum major stand, the center drum major stand, with some pencils. And during the water breaks, the kids can come and write, all right, I'm trumpet 15. Color guard 19 has killed me with their rifle 13 times in the last 10 minutes. We need to look at this drill spot. Yeah. I think what we're going to find is that most of the things the kids can work out on their own. Yeah. If it's a major drill issue, we're probably going to see it. Sure. And we're going to want to find out what it is. But hey, Billy's too close to me, we don't have time for that right now. We can look at that later. and I don't mean to be glib with that, but you got work to do. And so this is something we're going to try again. Definitely not, some groundbreaking method, but I think it'll work. And allowing students to tell us that things are wrong, but where we can fix it on our time and not get caught up in doing things. I have a personal clock for setting drill, and it's 10 minutes per page. Okay. If we get over 10 minutes, I start to become like a cat, in a room full of rocking chairs because I just don't understand. It takes 30 seconds to find a page of drill. Right. What were you doing for the other 9.5? Right. So now if we're not dealing with every other kid raising their hand and saying, this, I think that's going to be a little bit better. And the major things they can write down for me, put them on a sticky note. I'll get to them after rehearsal. I'll put it in our rehearsal notes for the next time, because once we get into the season, I do a rehearsal schedule for my staff, and we stick pretty close to it. Mm-hmm. Here's what we're doing tonight, and that's what we're doing. And that's just, and it's timed out too, because especially when you get into the 3 movements, I know every band director's, oh man, we only worked on movement 1 tonight. But we can put that in our notes. Okay, look, the trumpets are having a difficult time with the flutes right now. We didn't get to it last rehearsal. They let us know about it. We're going to hit it this rehearsal. Yeah. I think that's going to be an effective thing for us. So that's one small change we're going to make as far as that goes.
Awesome. I think that's going to work out great, and hopefully you'll report back to us and let us know how it did work out, and maybe share on a future interview. And the last thing I want to cover, I'm kind of put you on the spot here, but not in an embarrassing sort of way, but I'm a firm believer that whether you have a 60-piece band, a 250-piece band, whether you're the champion in BOA or you're a brand new band director or you've had some tenure, we all have different experiences, we all have different wisdom, and we all do something especially well. And so when you look over your career as a band director leading up to right now, what has been one of the strengths that you have that has served you and contributed to your success thus far as a band director?
I think there are 2 things, and sounds like an interview, like a job interview. I think there are 2 big things that I've carried with me that, whether they're right or they're wrong, I think are things I would champion and put on a flag and wave around. The first thing is character education. And I know that sounds like it's a cheap answer because every school is doing character education. No, I embraced it. When our school district decided to do these 12 character words, trustworthiness, all these things, we try to live that with our band. And I really try to come back to that. I renamed the band from the Blue and Gold Brigade to the Jaguar Pride, because pride is one of those character words. Sure. And at Seckman, we have the Jaguar Path: pride, achievement, teamwork, and heart. Okay. And so it kind of fits into that. So that was kind of refocusing with that. I feel like we've moved some of those kids that really don't need to be in band, and I know some band directors out there don't like when I say this. Right. They're just kids that don't need to be in band. Sure. And move them along so that you can have who you want to be in band. Every one of my kids, all 220 of these kids that I'm blessed with in my program, should be in band, okay? Yeah. And they're not there to cause trouble. They're not there to stir the pot. They're good kids. Sure. But it's because they started in a system where that's the expectation. It's good people. Yeah. I don't walk on eggshells around any of my students anymore. I remember my first year of teaching, and I know anybody who's taught, you had that kid that, man, if that kid just says one word to me, no, I don't have those. That's so good. We've created a climate where my student teacher came in to observe before he student taught. And just in those few hours, he was like, man, these are good kids. Wow. Like, they're good kids. They do all the stupid stuff that other kids do. Sure. But they're not blatantly disrespectful. They're not just rude. They're not mean.
Sure.
That's the culture we've created. Again, we're not Shangri-La here, but that's one of the things that I think is really I've pushed. And I'm over the top. I am. I'll admit that. And I shared with my freshman incoming parents, you're going to have a lot of times where your kid goes, really? and you come home and your kid tells you what I said to them, and you're going to go, really? You freaked out over the fact that my kid wore a tank top? And I'm going to say, yeah, because that's not the expectation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I freaked out because your kid left my $4,000 bass clarinet laying in the middle of the room. That's not the expectation.
Right.
And so that's the number one thing. The second thing is I teach with a lot of humor.
Okay.
I know a lot of people, it's not their style. They're very, direct and straight with their students.
Sure.
I want to have a good time.
Okay.
I mean, band is fun.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest activity that any student can be involved in, period. And I'll fight anybody out there, choir directors, let's bring it on. But it is the single greatest activity you can be involved in for a myriad of reasons. We are everything everybody else is combined. And if you do this with a negativity, if you do this with a pressure of winning all the time when you're not good enough to win, we're good enough to win, but not every week. So why tell my kids that that's our goal, right? Our goal is to go out and compete. But to keep education at the forefront and to have fun. I tell a lot of jokes, not necessarily longer jokes, but I joke around. I have plays on words that I use. I try to keep my rehearsals light. And with your top groups, you can have those in-depth glory moments of pure musicianship and everything. But at the end of the day, if the kids aren't having fun, they're not going to want to do that. So I remember reading a book by Dr. Peter Boonshaft, and he mentions that his humor was not intended to incite laughter, because if everybody was laughing, we'd never get anything done.
Right.
And I remember that. So all of my stupid jokes, all of my limericks, all of my, wasn't there a song named this? And the kids go, no, it's this. All of that is intended to make them want to work for me and work for each other. Because at the end of the day, I think every band director wants to be that guy in their kids' lives, or wants to be that woman in their kids' lives that even though they're not going to keep playing, that they say, wow, I learned a lot from that teacher. And I love when my kids say, man, this English teacher, I love him. He is fantastic. And what if we could do that for these kids? What if we could make them love band, love music, and if we can be part of that and do that? So I would say the character education component of our program, and sometimes it hurts. You're going to have to do things. We had to suspend some kids from a performance last year. It hurts. It really does, right? But I tell you what, we'll never deal with that situation again. So I think that's important to do. And then making rehearsals fun, finding exciting ways to make band camp interesting. Man, we had everybody bring a pair of socks to camp last year, and we threw the socks all over the football field. And we made the band go pair up all the socks without talking. The kids loved it. They were still talking about that. We're going to bring that back this year, but with the poker chips.
Okay.
And we're going to throw all of their field marking poker chips on the field and make them go find their poker chips without talking. How do you work as a section without talking? Just those type of fun activities that I think break up what can be a monotonous activity at times.
Sure.
Especially when you're just fixing that one page of drill. One page. how do you make it fun and exciting? So those are the two things I would say that we've done well. I know there are other things that, maybe you hear my band and, man, that piccolo's just not in tune. Okay, I'm learning. I'll get there. But
sure.
I think we're doing well, and the program's growing, and we have good kids. We fight the instrumentation battle that everybody fights, but we're getting there. I think those two things are going to be the pillars of how we move forward.
Excellent. Well, Ben, man, I have learned a lot, and I so appreciate your time in doing this because I wanted to share it with the other band directors out there because I'm a firm believer coming from and through the ranks of band, through leadership with Dr. Tim, through the process of being a drum major, student leader, and now through my adult life, learning from everybody. I mean, one of the pivotal things we learned, and you're a saxophone player, any jazz musician knows this, that when we come up as musicians, what do? We listen to and we study the greats. And I once heard a story, I don't know if it's true or not, maybe you heard the same story, of this guy playing his saxophone in his dorm room, and he's just shedding, he's just going at it. And all of a sudden this cat comes over and knocks on the door and says, "Hey, man, can I listen to you?" And he says, "All right, whatever, just come in." He was kind of rude because he was practicing. And then the guy says, "Look, I got my horn out in the car. Can you give me a lesson?" He's like, "All right, but it's going to cost you." And he goes, "Okay, well, how much do you want me to pay you?" He says, "Well, $100. Are you kidding me?" He's like, $100 or no lesson? He goes, "Okay, fine." So he ends up giving the guy a lesson. And finally, when the guy's on the way out, he says, "What's your name?" He says, "Branford. Thanks for the lesson." Branford Marsalis. Now, I don't know if that's urban legend or real rumor, but it just goes to illustrate that no matter where we are, we need to stop and listen and learn from other people because we can take so much wisdom from everyone. And I really appreciate you sharing. And one of the reasons that I'm doing this is that I want other band directors who are watching this who have something in their program that they do well, but they might be thinking, I think I do this well, but who am I to share this with my colleagues? I'm nobody, or I haven't arrived yet. I want them to feel like they can share it because you can learn from it. I can learn from it. The BOA champions, as you mentioned, can learn from it because we can all rise together. Is that fair enough?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So I know there's going to be some people who want to know more and reach out to you, pick your brain, ask you questions. Would it be okay if I put your information in the show notes and just let them know how to get in touch with you via email or something of that nature?
Absolutely. Email is the greatest way to get a hold of me, and anybody is welcome to email me at middleton@fox.k12.mo.us.
Okay.
I know you'll put that in the show notes.
I will.
But I'm an open book, and I'm a big person in the mentoring area. I'm very thankful to master teachers that I've been able to work with, and I may never be that guy, and that's okay. But if there's somebody out there that says, "Hey, I want to make this work," I'll certainly open it up. Or if you're watching this and you are a master teacher and I just sound like an arrogant young pup, please feel free to email me and let me know, "Hey, here's how you should change this," because I'm ever learning and always looking to meld. So the old guard out there, if you got something for me, feel free to email me and let me know because I want to be successful, and I want to help other people be successful as well.
All right. Well, Ben, I appreciate it so much. I honor you for sharing your information and honor you for everything you do as an educator. And I know without my band directors in my life, I wouldn't be the person who I am today. So thanks for sharing your wisdom and your experience of what you're going through. And I wish you guys the best marching band season ever, and I hope you blow it out of the water and just walk away feeling so proud and excited for yourselves this year, and that those kids walk away with some principles that they can use throughout their life.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right. So welcome back, and I hope you enjoyed that and got some value from it. And I'm so thankful to Mr. Ben Middleton for sharing his time, his wisdom, and his insight with us today. So if you have any questions for Ben, I'm leaving his information somewhere below here in the show notes or in the comment section below. So be sure to reach out to him if you have any questions. He's an open book. He's very helpful, a great guy. Spent some time talking with him on the phone before that interview, and we just had a great time. So reach out to him if you have any questions. Likewise, I wanted to extend the invitation to you. As you probably heard there towards the end of the video, I plan on taking this further into an interview series where I interview band directors just like you and talk about the things that have worked in your band program. Why? So selfishly, I can learn from you, but also your peers can learn from the great things that you're doing, because again, that saying says a rising tide raises all ships. So I'll be looking for people who are interested in sharing some of the things that they're doing well. I've already got several people in the pipeline ready to go, but I want to hear from you. If there's something you do great in your band, something that you've really excelled at, one of your strengths, or something that's really helping you to achieve the goals that you're setting year to year, I'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like to be a guest clinician, a guest facilitator, or a guest instructor in Band Leadership Online, I'd also love to work with you, so please reach out to me. The best way to reach out to me is simply shooting me an email, Dwayne@rdwaynehuff.com. I've put it right here at the bottom of the screen. And until we talk next time, have a great day. Good luck in the upcoming marching season, and we'll talk soon.